I just miss my grandbaby. That's all. She meant the world to us, and he discarded her like she was nothing. 2,310 days for this day to come.
Horrendous, physically painful, and psychologically torturous death at the hands of the defendant.
We want to start with an update on a case in the death of 9-year-old Felecia Williams in 2014.
Picture a courtroom in Tampa, Florida. The man at the defense table has just been convicted of murdering a 9-year-old girl. The jury has spoken. 12 votes for death, not one for mercy. And now the girl's father rises to give his statement. Everyone in that room believes they know what is coming: rage, grief, a curse. Instead, the father looks directly at the man who killed his daughter, and he says 3 words: "I love you." Nobody saw it coming. Some of the people in that room will never understand it. And to understand how a father arrives at those 3 words, you have to walk the whole road with him. Back 6 years. Back to an ordinary Florida afternoon. A little girl her family called Sugar Plum, and a decision that took less than a minute to make and cost everything there was to lose. This is her story. And if you stay to the end, I promise those 3 words will sound different than they do right now. Real quick, before we start. CaseFrame exists to tell these stories with respect, not for shock. If that is the kind of true crime you want more of, subscribe now so the next case reaches you. There are 3 adults at the center of this story. A mother who did what mothers everywhere do every single day. A family friend who made one choice she can never take back. And a stranger who had been in the picture for less time than it takes to truly know anyone. Between those 3 adults stood one child. Her name was Felecia Williams. She was 9 years old. Her family had a nickname for her, the kind you only earn by being the joy of a household. Sugar Plum. Say it out loud, and you can almost see her. A little girl still young enough to believe that every adult who smiles at her means it. 9 is a trusting age. At 9, you do not audit the grown-ups around you. You take their hand when they reach for yours. That is not weakness. That is what childhood is supposed to be. The auditing is supposed to be done for you by the people who love you. Remember that, because this entire case is about what happens when the auditing fails. On the afternoon this story begins, Felicia's mother made a decision so ordinary it barely counts as one. A trusted family friend offered to take Felecia out for a few hours. She said yes. That is the whole decision. Millions of parents make it every day, and almost every single time, nothing happens at all. Keep that in mind as this unfolds. Her mother did nothing that you and I have not done, or would not do. The friend was a woman named Ebony Wiley. She was not some acquaintance from the edge of their lives. She was close. So close that she considered herself something like a godmother to Felecia. When she came to pick up the little girl that day, there was no reason for alarm bells. There were no alarm bells to ring. But Wiley was carrying something the family knew nothing about. A new man in her life. His name was Granville Ritchie. She liked him. She wanted to see him. And she had known him for only a short time. Not long enough to see who he was when it mattered, not long enough to know anything real about him at all. Ask yourself honestly, how long would someone need to be in your life before you let them near a child you love? A year? 5? Wiley had known Ritchie only briefly, and that afternoon she decided the visit could not wait, and that Felecia would simply come along. The afternoon started gently. They stopped at a drive-thru and got Felecia something to eat. Hold on to that detail. Not because it matters to the investigation, but because of what it tells you. This was still a normal day. A kid in the back seat with a snack. Nothing about it looked like the opening chapter of a tragedy. They arrived at an apartment in the Temple Terrace, a small city on the edge of Tampa. The apartment belonged to Ritchie's mother, and Ritchie was staying there. Felecia had never been inside those walls in her life. She walked in anyway, because the adult she trusted walked in first. Now comes the minute this entire case turns on. At some point that afternoon, Wiley needed to go out. According to what later came out in court, she was leaving to buy marijuana, and she had a choice to make: take the 9-year-old with her or leave her at the apartment. She has said the thought crossed her mind to bring Felecia along. It crossed her mind. Then Granville Ritchie spoke up. He told her to leave the girl there. She would be fine. He would be there. Wiley walked out the door alone. Think about how small that moment must have felt at the time. A quick errand. An hour, give or take. A grown man in the apartment. What could possibly happen in an hour? The people who loved Felecia would spend the next 6 years finding out. When Wiley came back, the apartment was quiet in the wrong way. Felecia was gone, and Ritchie had an answer ready. He said he had given her a little money and she had walked to a nearby store to buy candy. Simple. Innocent. A kid with a sweet tooth. Here's the thing about a lie like that. It works just long enough. Long enough for the first minutes to slip away. Long enough for the people searching to look in the wrong places, knock on the wrong doors, and call her name on streets she never walked. In a missing child case, the first hours are worth more than everything that comes after. And those hours were spent chasing a girl who was never out there. Police in Temple Terrace opened a missing person case. And almost immediately, the story started to wobble. Wiley did not give investigators the whole truth. Her first account left out the most important fact of the entire day: that she had left Felecia alone with a man the child had met only hours before. The timeline had gaps. The versions did not match. Investigators could feel it. The way you feel a floorboard give slightly under your weight. Something underneath this story was hollow. And then the search ended, in the one way no search is ever supposed to end. The next day, Felecia's body was recovered from the water near the Courtney Campbell Causeway, the long causeway that carries traffic across the bay between Tampa and Clearwater. She had been missing for 1 day. 1. The candy store story did not even survive 24 hours. There is no way to soften what that moment did to her family. The night before, they had a missing child and a reason to hope. Now, they had neither. Every parent watching this knows there is a kind of grief you climb out of, and a kind you carry to the end. This was the second kind. I want to pause here because this is where the case truly begins. If you are still with me, tap the like button so this story reaches the people who need to hear it, and tell me in the comments what you think the evidence is about to reveal. Then, stay put. Because what investigators found next is the reason 12 jurors would one day vote the way they did.
The family of 9-year-old Felecia Williams is saying a final goodbye to the little girl found dead near the Courtney Campbell Causeway 1 week ago. While Temple Terrace police continue to investigate her murder, many of Felicia's friends and family gathered for her funeral earlier today. Our Jason Beisel now takes us to that emotional ceremony.
We're not supposed to bury our kids. Our kids are supposed to bury us, so.
Grieving family members, friends, and those who just felt moved to pay their respects came to the Rock Church of God by Faith in Tampa to remember 9-year-old Felecia Williams, or as her family calls her, Sugar Plum.
With Felecia gone, the lies had nowhere left to hide. Investigators pressed, and the first story cracked. Wiley finally admitted what she had left out. She had walked out of that apartment and left Felecia behind, alone, with Granville Ritchie. From that moment, the investigation had a center of gravity. 1 man, 1 hour, 1 apartment. And the evidence began to line up like iron filings around a magnet. Start with the phones. When investigators went through the records, they found something that stops you cold. During the window when Felecia was alone with Ritchie, a call went out from his phone to 911. It lasted only a few seconds. No clear words, no address, just a connection, and then nothing. Prosecutors would later stand in front of a jury and say that call was not made by Granville Ritchie. It was made by Felecia, a 9-year-old girl in the worst moment of her life doing the one thing every child is taught to do in an emergency. She reached for a phone. She dialed 3 numbers, and the line went silent before help could ever come. Sit with that for a moment. She did everything right. Everything a child can possibly do, she did. The records had more to say. That night, Ritchie's phone traveled west across Tampa toward the bay, toward the very stretch of water where Felecia would be found. And when investigators processed his car, they found leaves and sand consistent with the scene near the causeway. Piece by piece, a route was taking shape. From the apartment in Temple Terrace, across the county, to the water's edge. The picture prosecutors assembled was as cold as it gets. After dropping Wiley back in Tampa that night, Ritchie returned to the apartment, placed the little girl's body inside a suitcase, drove it to the causeway, and let the water take her. Days later, officers took Ritchie into custody. The initial arrest was on an unrelated matter, but that hardly mattered for long. His name now sat at the center of a child's homicide. And Ebony Wiley faced consequences of her own, charged over the false account she gave during the search. It took years for the case to reach a jury. The charges were the heaviest the law can bring: first-degree murder, sexual battery of a child, aggravated child abuse. And when the trial finally came, the witness who mattered most was the woman whose choice had started it all. Ebony Wiley took the stand and told the truth at last, in front of everyone. She left Felecia with him.
Yes, I told a lot of stories, but
Told a lot of stories.
yeah, I lied.
Right.
I can admit that. Yes, I did.
She lied to the police. Whatever it cost her to say it out loud, she said it. The jury heard the phone records. They heard about those few seconds of a 911 call. They heard all of it, and they convicted Granville Ritchie on every single count. Then came the only question left: should he live or should he die? Florida asked 12 people, and 12 people gave the same answer: death, unanimous. A judge later formally imposed the sentence.
In the instant case, the jury unanimously found that each of the aggravating factors presented by the state were proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and that the aggravating factors outweighed the mitigating circumstances presented by defendant. The jury unanimously found that defendant should be sentenced to death. As such, the court has now conducted its own weighing process as required by law.
And now we are back in that courtroom. At the moment this story began. Because a sentencing is not only about the guilty, it is the one day the family finally gets to speak. Felicia's mother went first. She stood in black and told the court she had been counting. Not months, days. 2,310 days between the afternoon her daughter left with a trusted friend and the moment she finally faced the man responsible.
I've waited 2,310 days for this day to come.
She did not perform calm. She was a mother, robbed, and she said plainly that she wanted the harshest answer the law could give. No one who has ever loved a child could fail to understand her.
The only thing I regret today is that I cannot ask for his fate. And that would be for him to be hung, for him to feel what my daughter felt.
Then her father rose. And you already know what he said. But now you know everything he knew when he said it. He knew about the hour, the lie, the suitcase, the seconds-long call for help. He knew all of it. And still, he looked at the man convicted of destroying his family, said that no one had ever asked him for forgiveness and gave it anyway. Then, 3 words: I love you. At the start of this video, those words probably sounded impossible. Maybe they still do, but anger and mercy stood side by side in that courtroom in the same family on the same day, and both were real. Here's the truth this case teaches better than almost any other. Both of those responses are love. One demands justice for the child who was taken. The other refuses to let hatred claim a second life. Neither one is wrong. Which brings us to the hardest question this case leaves behind. What about Ebony Wiley? She was never charged in Felicia's death. Prosecutors were clear about why. There was no evidence she knew what Ritchie intended, and no evidence she played any part in the killing. In the eyes of the law, her crime was the lie. She eventually pleaded guilty to giving false information to law enforcement, and her sentence amounted to a short stay in jail and a period of probation.
Well, the final chapter has closed on one of the Bay Area's most heartbreaking stories, but it brings no relief to the mother who has lived through it for the last 6.5 years, every minute of it full of anguish. Today, Ebony Wiley, the family friend who brought little 9-year-old Felecia Williams together with a man who brutally killed her, was sentenced for lying to police. As Fox 13's Gloria Gomez reports, Felicia's family was there to confront the woman they say betrayed them.
Failed to protect her.
Murder!
At Ebony Wiley's sentencing, no face covering could hide the disdain Felicia's grandmother harbored for Wiley.
Thought y'all murdered my baby. You didn't call 911. Why didn't you call 911 when my baby was missing?
For Felicia's family, that landed like an insult. The woman they trusted like family had left their daughter with a virtual stranger, then misled the very people trying to find her. A brief jail term. Probation. Set that against the life of a child, and the scales do not just tilt, they break. Her father would go on to push for Wiley to answer for more than she did. Maybe that is the question you carry out of this story. The law can only punish what it can prove. But responsibility is bigger than a statute. When your choice opens the door and someone else walks through it to do the unthinkable, what exactly do you owe? The courts gave their answer. I suspect many of you will have your own. As for Granville Ritchie, the story has not fully ended. The state's highest court reviewed his conviction and his death sentence and upheld them both.
Sentenced to death. Today, a judge upheld a death sentence against Granville Ritchie. He's convicted of raping and murdering a 9-year-old girl and then dumping her body off the Howard Franklin Bridge 6 years ago. ABC Action News reporter Isabel Rosales was at the court today during a very emotional hearing.
His lawyers continue to file appeals, still seeking a new hearing. As of today, he remains on death row. But do not let him be the last thing you remember here. Let it be her, a 9-year-old girl from Tampa who trusted the way all children trust because the adults around her were supposed to be worth it. A girl whose family loved her so completely that one of them counted 2,310 days for justice, and another found a way to forgive the unforgivable. She was Felecia Williams. Her family called her Sugar Plum. Both of those names deserve to outlive everything else in this story. If CaseFrame told this one the way it deserved, do 3 small things. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because that is what decides whether stories like hers keep getting told. There is another case waiting on your screen right now if you are ready for it. And before you go, answer me this in the comments. Felicia's father chose forgiveness. Her mother chose justice. If it were your family, which voice would be yours? And could you ever understand the other one? I will be reading every answer. Until next time, hold your people close and be careful who you open the door for.